Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Augmentt Tour series, sponsored by Augmentt, simplifying M365 security for MSPs across the world. For anyone who's new to the Augmentt Tour series, this is a little show where I myself, George Smith, am talking to some of the brightest and most experienced folks across the channel to glean some advice and some information from them. And today I'm really excited to have Juan Fernandez on, who is known to many in the channel, a guy who's been doing lots of great things, now with SuperOps.ai, who we'll hear a little bit about later. But for me, the key thing for Juan's story, and something that I'm really interested to dive in with him today, is Juan is actually a former MSP himself that built his business up to over 20 million in only 6 years, with a MSP business across 12 different locations. So obviously, Juan has some great business practices, very smart guy. I'm really excited to chat to him today. So welcome, Juan. How are you, sir?
Hey, brother. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to sharing some great stories and some of the how-tos, how-not-tos, and some of the awesome opportunities that we can glean in building managed service practices today.
Yeah, let's jump straight into it. I mean, for those who don't know as well, Juan actually is co-author of a great book series, which we can touch on, the MSP Owner's Handbook, which Matt Lee referred to on our last episode as well. But maybe we'll start at the beginning, Juan. Tell us a little bit about how and why you became an MSP in the first place back in the day.
I think all of us start off with this, journey to entrepreneurship at some point. And I actually talk a lot about my first foray into IT, where, I felt like I had gotten to a point in my career that, I felt like maybe I wasn't being compensated for my level of ability, right? I felt like maybe I could go and do this and maybe help others. And there was a scenario where people were paying me outside of my job to actually come and help them with computers. And I was like, you know what? If I just did more of this PC break fix thing, I could probably make a good living at this. And God only knows where it could go from there, right? So, I was in my young 20s, and I remember thinking to myself, let's do this, right? Let's go. And so I started off back in the early 2000s, and actually stepped out into, a world that was not called managed services back then. It was just PC break fix, and, delivering, I felt like I could go and deliver high quality products and services because I'd built a number of enterprises, and I felt like I had the skills that it took to, the easy stuff was a PC break fix, PC cleaning, I had a big backup disaster recovery type data recovery side of my business, and built websites and had a cabling company and all these things. And I knew that I could just do tech for money. And so now I call it the accidental entrepreneur because that was my first foray into IT entrepreneurship. The challenge with that was that I had no idea what I was doing, right? I remember when I first started, I didn't even know how to create a business plan. So again, where I stand today is very different than where I stood then. But a lot of those things that I stumbled over myself, and I remember landing my first customer was like at a bar. Like I was at the deepest, darkest moment. I had no idea how to sell, and I didn't know how to go to market. I didn't know any of this, man. I barely got a piece of paper with an insurance, and was like business insurance card, and was like, okay, now what? So I was at a bar, and I remember sitting there, and I was just kind of worried to go home and tell my wife I didn't know what I was doing. I started an IT company, and I don't have any customers, right? I have some people that I do IT support for, but I don't know how to get customers. And I was sitting at that bar, and I remember thinking, I was taking a drink of a beer. I knew the bartender, and this guy next to me is like, hey man, so what do you do? And I looked at him, and I was just kind of at a dark moment. And I said, oh, I build computers and servers and infrastructure, and, do a lot of security stuff. And he's like, what's your background? And I was like, oh, I used to work for the federal government. And I'm drinking my beer, and I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm starting this real estate thing, and, just, looking to connect with people looking to buy houses, and, maybe open a mortgage company. And he's like, I don't know anything about computers. I said, well, if you ever need help, man, that's what I know. I said, I don't know anything about mortgages or houses or anything, but I could sure do computers. And I landed my first customer that night. And that's how I started when I read. I mean, that's how accidental I was an entrepreneur. Like I literally stumbled over my first customer at the darkest moment. Come to find out, he landed up being one of the largest uh, real estate companies because we use technology as a competitive advantage. And so we used, and I built hundreds of computers for him and tons of servers. And he's now like one of the largest real estate entities in New Mexico. And so it was really funny to start at that little point, not knowing anything. And that's really where I got my start. And so took that, exited it, not gracefully. It was kind of a catastrophe, to tell you the truth. I burned it to the ground. If you ever want to hear a story about how to take a company to 3 million and then burn it down at the finish line, come see me. That's another story for another day. But trust me, it ends with tears and sadness and all the things you should never do in an acquisition. I could tell you. So I have that story, but let's talk about the next one. So I spent years going back in industry after I exited that one, roughly on fire and in flames. And I went back and started thinking about how buyers buy in. That being said, that's where I came up with the next design for my managed service practice that I ultimately launched in 2014. And in that, I actually took and built and architected a 7-year plan of how to perfect this next evolution of IT in the way I thought it, and went to market. And I took that thing and hired, a few people started that, and the rest is history, right? We went 0 to 20 million in about 6 years across 16 locations across the United States. So it's definitely interesting. It's a long story, but I, just like many of you here today, did not start off very successful. I learned a lot. So I hope that I can share some of those today.
So what would you say, Glenn? So I didn't realize that. So the sort of phase of the accidental entrepreneur, we'll call it, where you kind of stumbled into this, but defined success, had a couple of big clients, eventually sold that. Obviously, you're interested to kind of replicate. You said, I'm onto something here. I have the skill set. I have the knowledge within IT, and there's a demand here that I can fill, and I can build a business all of it. So whenever you started that second journey in 2014 to kind of begin building this, you already talked about how in the accidental entrepreneur phase, you didn't even have a business plan. It sounds like you sat down and really had some strategic thought processes around what this business was going to look like. Can you walk us through sort of the difference in that and what you'd learned from your previous experience of like, okay, if I'm going to do this, here's some of the key cornerstones that I need to set up immediately. And I think I'll maybe throw a couple of darts at you and see if I can take a guess. It seems like in the second one, you had a real focus on working on the business instead of in the business, and also actually I don't hear a lot of business owners in general, MSP or otherwise, say, I'm going to start this business, I'm going to have this 6-year plan, and here's how it's going to work. I think a lot of people say, I'll start this business and see how it goes. So can you walk us through the mindset and what you were thinking and maybe scribbling out on bits of paper back in 2014 at the onset of this new venture?
Yeah, I took quite a bit of time to actually reverse engineer. And I think that as an engineer, as a builder, as what I see myself as, is I had to understand where I won and lost, right? I played the chess game for years to figure out, all right, that actually didn't lose. I didn't lose there. I won there. But everything here, I just didn't know how to execute on this moment. So although I beat myself up about potentially not being a super success in the first one, I actually did learn a lot. And one of those things that I did learn a lot about was creating what I call a profit protection program. Because I don't know how many entrepreneurs are here today, but there's a challenge. Like when you're first starting out, like I remember with some of the pain points that I absolutely said to myself, here are the key cornerstones of shit I never want to do again. Excuse my language, but very adamant about things I do not want to do. Number one is I never want to blow the dust out of another computer. Number two, I never want to not make any money at IT again. Number three is I want to have something where I create intangible, tangible, which is like professional services. Like I need all these key components to make this make sense, and I have to make it for a price that everybody can afford. So with that being said, I needed to reverse engineer the dollars and cents, and I came up with a business plan that was very articulated. And I did a lot of industry research on the way buyers buy in that certain segment of time. And I just basically spent time unlearning, and if you will, right? And I said to myself, pretend like you don't know anything about this space, and how do you explain it, right? And I went back and said, okay, here are all the things that I don't want to do. Now let's create a plan that does what that is the counterbalance of. So I spent time building and architecting a business plan that spoke specifically to the needs and wants of the future customers that I wanted to do business with. I also understood the addressable market in terms of who I wanted to go after and the products and services that I wanted to build. And one of the key things is I said, I want to create dream jobs. I want to make sure that everybody that comes to work here loves to work here, because my employees, because I did too many things the last time, they got frustrated and they were mad at me often because I would do things and sell things that made them upset. And I didn't want them to feel like that. And it made a really tense work environment.
So do you think you as the head of the organization, having availability to your staff and employees was just as important?
I think it was twofold, right? So I find myself to be a good bottom-up leader. And I think that there's something we need to think about. And I want to give this to everyone today because there's a break in the way we understand and learn. One of the things that I know everyone here has probably heard is people, process, technology, right? Hear that all the time. Well, there's that understanding means that I should hire people to build a process that uses technology to empower things, right? Like it creates a company. That's the fallacy. It's broken. It's actually not that. I understood that after listening to that. I was like, that's not right. The way it is, and I had to actually prove this out to myself and my design at my company was I built processes that empower people to be successful, that creates a great culture, that creates a great company, and that allows you to scale. And so it's actually process, people, technology. And as a leader, it was important for me to go and actually do it first, show that it was possible, demonstrate it, document it, hand it back, and then say, tell me if it works. And then he'd be like, dude, this works. And I'm like, all right, let's keep doing that. Or it doesn't work, right? Why doesn't it work? Okay, well, let's change that. So sitting down, number one was creating a business plan. And I actually created a 4-year business plan, which was awesome because I outperformed it in year 3.
Nice.
In year 3, that's when I saw this huge hockey stick. We went from not profitable to profitable in year 3 and paid back all of our initial investments and then became profitable in year 3, which I had projected that happening at year 4. And then it just went straight up as hard as it possibly could because I was doing all the building. But the thing about it is that I had to actually understand the products and services that I wanted to sell, what I wanted to do, what were the outcomes that I was going to do it with, who were the people that I needed to do it, and how many dollars, like what was my MRR percentage and my cost per seat, and how many customers did I need to bring in on a monthly basis to get to a certain level. And I had articulated that to a point that I knew I needed $20,000 in MRR within the first 90 days to actually get to a point to hire my first employee.
Gotcha. So now we're talking here, Juan. So it's like, so I love the image of like reverse engineering and sort of like, and I think it starts as you said, like, what is it you want to do or achieve or not? I love your example. Like, I don't want to blow dust out of a computer ever again. So what do I need to do that in terms of, and then, yeah, let's get specific. Let's talk numbers. Let's talk staff. Let's talk, MRR. And so, and kind of build down that way. So is there, if we go all the way down to the start of like building that process, can you tell a story or give us a specific example? Maybe it's through a staff hire, like a technician, a salesperson, or kind of like what that would look like and what those conversations would look like.
So from the beginning, you have to start off with what you're trying to deliver, right? And then you have to actually say, okay, here's my program. And I teach this a lot, right? Your program is you, right? It's not the product that you sell. It's the outcome that you deliver through your effective use of technology, right? So when you think about what it is that I deliver customer success through the thoughtful use of technology, right? When you do business with me, it's not about the product that I'm going to sell you. It's not about the security. It's not about the compliance. It's not about the router, the switch, the firewall, the architecture. It's not about me protecting you. It's about you trusting me that I have your best interest in mind and that you're going to be successful in all things that you do with me. And I can articulate that through the delivery of technology, right? So when you're thinking about what you're trying to do in your business, right? Oftentimes we stumble into this and we say, okay, Well, if I sell something, that's what I do. Okay, that's cool. That's a value-added reseller, right?
Mhm.
Not a managed service provider. And when you think about it, when you're managing to deliver something, you have to manage the relationship. You have to manage all the things, right? So it's not just about the monitoring, maintenance, and management of an infrastructure. It's what does the customer get from you? What can you guarantee with your program? And that's where you have to start is what does my program deliver? And then who is it that I need, right? Because I was the best salesperson in the company originally. I mean, I'd go into every city and sit down with everyone and articulate our program and tell them exactly what was going to happen. I would spell out the onboarding. I'd spell out the way we did business, the way that we implemented products, the way that we did projects and services. And that at the end of this, you were going to be successful with me.
And so that's really, really interesting, Juan, because I feel like maybe that's although it's quite self-explanatory, maybe there's a lot of MSPs out there that miss that subtle point that you just said, which is it's not about you're selling backup or email security. Some people may not even really understand what that is. It's not about the products. It's you, it's your brand, it's your business, it's your process, and it's the problems that you're solving, how you're solving them, and the way you actually interact with your customers should be that entry point of what you're speaking about before you get into the nitty gritty. Is that a fair kind of conclusion?
100%. And I think that from that perspective is I'm selling success, right? You can't compete with me on success unless you can define it, right? And I was able to clearly articulate and exactly how you were going to be successful with us. So when we competed against other MSPs, I didn't have my own help desk. I didn't do a lot of the things that we did. Like we didn't go and clean computers. We just bought new ones and gave them to you as a service. Like there was no equation of me fixing your computer that was more cost effective. It was like $45 for a brand new computer. Like, why would you not? I'm not going to clean your computer. Like that's $600. I'm saving you money by you buying a new one and I'm increasing productivity. Are you kidding me? Why would you do that? Right. So like, I literally built my way out of all the things that I didn't want to do. And that's where you have to think differently, right? And I know this is a very different topic because most people are like, hey, we do tech, Juan. And I'm like, we do. But if you engineer your business, you actually don't have to do as much tech, which is very weird to think about, right? You can still be very professional in the way you do things at a very high level, but we focused on really high level things like all the projects and services that the hero mode, where every time we came in and finished one of those, they were like, boom, like immediate ROI. They're like, God, you guys are so good. Like our stuff always works. We're always moving forward on tech. Like they loved us. And that's what you want for your employees. They want to feel like they love working here. Like I like coming to work because like every time we do something, our customers love us. Yeah, there's BS every once in a while, but it ain't coming in. I wrote an article and I got a little trash for this early on for Channel Futures. It was called Put Down the Broom and Stop Being the Janitor, man. And I thought I was going to get booed out of the channel. But it was one of those things where we, like, as an entrepreneur, we have to recognize what's important. You have to think about what it is that I'm trying to do and the people around me, right? What do we really want to be doing? And if you ask any one of your people, like, do you want to be on the help desk? I assure you, none of them are going to raise their hand. Like they don't want to do those things. So that's why I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take all this and move it off and we're all going to focus on this. So
the one in another episode, I was actually speaking to Jameson West over at MSP Ops, and he had some really good ideas and information to share around kind of a similar topic around accountability charts. And so if we drill into to take a step back, I think you and I both know, one, that technology continues to accelerate. There is going to be an increasingly large skill gap, okay, in terms of the workforce and the expertise needed to help manage IT, which is a good thing for MSPs. There's going to be a huge surge in demand for managed services, but it's also going to be difficult to get the right people into the job. And so there's a new phrase being batted around where it's retention is the new recruitment. So it's not necessarily how do you recruit top talent, but how do you retain? So I think that's quite a poignant subject with you and your processes and talking about keeping your employees happy. Is there any kind of key things that you learned either through mistakes or positive reinforcement that you can share with existing MSPs? Of like, look, guys, if there's one thing you're going to do with your staff, it's this. It's realize you need to be doing X, Y, Z, and it might not necessarily be monetary compensation. Is it just getting to know them as human beings? Is it giving them accountability and making sure they understand their exact role, so they can feel good about their role and say, look, I'm ticking all the boxes that I've been assigned. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, and it's really, again, you have to start off thinking that way, and that's just the beauty of the iterative process, right? You can take where you are today and make these small iterative changes towards this what I'm about to say. And I do this, and I've helped a lot of MSPs think through this challenge, is because I said it earlier, and I know it doesn't stick right away because it's a change in mindset, right? Building processes that empower people to be successful is the key to building an effective company. So I actually will go and build a process, and I'll go and test it, and I'll go and think about it, and I'll put it together, and then I'll give it, or I'll work with the team to say, all right, let's just see what happens. Like, let's just put the quarter in and the dollar. Let's see if the dollar ever comes out, is my analogy, like the slot machine, right? And then in that, let's open the slot machine and see, where did it get stuck? Okay, it's right here. All right, cool. Like, how do we fix that? And then once the process is ironed out, I'll hand it to that person and say, this is yours now. Like, do me a favor and just keep touch of that and tell me if one is better or if two is better. And if maybe two's not better, is zero better, right? Like, what does this look like? And then I allow them to own that process. So they become part of the toy and part of the tool and part of the company. And ironically, and I'll give you this because I saw my team recently from my MSP, and they sat me down and they said, I got a bone to pick with you. And I said, what's that? You guys should be happy. You guys are killing it at life. They said, you created a machine that won't let us go. We can't leave because it's so quiet and it's so peaceful and it's so wonderful inside of here every time we put our head out, even if it is for more money. It's so chaotic that we can't leave because we love what we do.
And is that just from having clarity around, I own this link in the chain of this process?
They were empowered to be successful in their own right. Like, that's the beauty of it, right? Like, they have the full autonomy within the world they live to be successful in all the things. And I've shielded them from all the noise. The process that I built and the company stopped all of the chaos, right? And so they can't go. And they even tell me this, they can't leave. They're mad at me. So I love the fact that they can't, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but you asked for a dream job. I've given you a dream. You just can't leave it, right? And that's what you have to think through. And again, I'll illustrate this because this is something I do is share, like, even in your customer journey, right? All of these steps that I created, the customer journey, at the bottom were measurables. And in these processes that I created, down at the bottom were KPIs, and then who was the owner of them, right? So when you think about what it is that you do, it's the delivery mechanisms, like, what is your roles and responsibilities? And everybody knew as a team who and how they won. They could see how their component of what they were doing and how they delivered at a high level, and the transparency in it won as a team, right? And then I also built compensation plans that actually taught them to play together. So it was just a very different way of thinking about things.
It's funny how there's things overlapping. There's another webinar I did with Tahir over at MSP Camp, and he actually raised that same subject of it's important to incentivize and reward other members of the team, not just sales guys, right, for around with their KPIs, whether it's help desk and clearing tickets, whether it's customer service and the satisfaction provided to your clients, all that stuff. So I love that visual breakdown of here's the actual customer journey, and here's who's responsible for each part of that process, and also getting specific, not just saying, hey, George, you're responsible for customer service and making sure that that's good. Okay, well, what does good customer service look like? Here's actually some of the actual key KPIs, whether it's answering the phone after 3 rings or making sure that tickets are cleared within 24 hours or whatever the SLA may be. So that is that the level of detail that you or other MSP owners, like actual entrepreneurs, need to drill into to kind of achieve that harmony within the team that you've described still exists at your former MSP?
Yeah, and one of the things, the way I did it was I created something called deal autopsies. So every deal would
Deal autopsies?
Deal autopsies. So it was one of the mechanisms that I actually created. It actually come out in the next MSP Owner's Handbook, the sales edition,
Oh,
plug,
okay.
that will be in there. And it talks a lot about deal autopsies and how to reverse engineer the win and loss of every deal, right? Because it's important to understand not only how you lost it, but it's also very important to understand how you won it. Like you have to go back in time and look at like, all right, hey, and the beauty of it is that it built itself over time. So as I hired new salespeople, I'd be like, all right, tell me the first 4 questions you're going to ask this customer. And they're like, okay, do you know about cybersecurity? Do you know about AI? And do you know, like, do you have any risk in your business? And I'm like, those are all fake yeses. You know that, right? We have nothing to do with any of that. You can't stop them from using AI. You're not going to protect them from cybersecurity, and they all have risk. So those are all fake yeses. Like it was beautiful to just reverse engineer it because I could say, all right, I can show you what 5 questions hit every single time, and I can show you all the questions that you can ask. And here are the ones that always work. If you want a guaranteed close, only ask these questions. And I teach this in my class called What Your Customers Aren't Telling You. And in that, I reverse engineer how to ask the questions that lead back to you so you don't land up with this horrible thing, which we all love and hate. No, right? So when you're thinking about how you empower your team, you have to give them goalposts, right? And I did something ironically different, and people always shake their head like, you did what? I actually took away raises in my company. I said, hey, guess what? I don't think that me giving you a raise for being here is an effective mechanism. Would you guys agree? And they're like, what? And I'm like, how about this? What if I give you a percentage for the VCIOs and the project team? I give you a percentage of all the projects that are completed on time, within scope, under budget. I give you 5% of every one of those projects. But sales team is not allowed to sell it. You guys build, deliver, deploy on your own. Close those deals. Sales team is not involved. Sales team is taught to hunt. All they do is hunt. You guys are doing all the internal. And I actually broke it down so I compensated. And then on the help desk and on the VCO side, they got paid on retention. So if a customer stayed and then they did certain things, like they got paid on retention. High customer satisfaction was also compensated for. Like I just changed the game. The beauty of what you guys are building here is your own company. So there is no rules to what's possible because I created all kinds of new ones. Like it was just fun to do. And it was like, let's see if this works. And it drove them. So now I was like, hey, you can give yourself your own raise. You guys,
Yeah, if you work hard, you can and you drive your own efficiencies. And we always talk about the profitability coin where there's two sides where it's like you can either find more ways to generate money or you can find ways to save time so you can get more done in the time you have, which then makes you a more effective employee, which drives profitability as well. So it's really interesting you mentioned that one that you were kind of doing that back in the day, because again, that's something we're hearing more and more of is how do you incentivize employees? It seems to be giving them the option to share in the profitability and success of the company actually helps kickstart a lot of things. Just in the interest of time, for anyone who's on the call that wants to ask a question, I see we already got one in the Q&A, so please drop them there. We'll go through those at the end. Juan, I've just got 3 quick things I kind of want to ask you at the end. One, quick little mention about the MSP Owner's Handbook. This is something that I know you started that there's edition 1, and then there was a second edition with Marnie, Matt, and Wes, who are all great folks. The Sassy edition. Can you just tell us a little bit about what those are like, what they're about, why they're useful, and where people can get their hands on them?
Yeah, very much. Thank you so much for that. This is a passion project of mine. The MSP Owner's Handbook was intended to, a lot of folks wanted to know how I was doing things. And I was like, I just was like, I can't get to enough people fast enough. So I figured, why don't I take all the practices and processes and procedures and throw them into a book and allow people to understand how that worked. And so me and Marnie came together. She's fantastic. She's also the CEO of Lifecycle Insights. Our first one was KBR edition because we felt like quarterly business reviews and like customer penetration mechanisms were a big thing. And then, of course, then we did the Sassy edition with Wes and Matt talking about the future of managed services. So 2 different editions. One of them is community version, and one of them is actually the strategical tactical building version. So we are going to keep doing these. I have 6 more of these to do. So I have sales.
So, wow, it's going to be a
I have
whole
a
shelf
bunch.
for people.
Well, we wanted to break down each of the components that actually make managed services special, right? And actually give you like strategic and tactical advice on how to do it with worksheets and all those things. So the books, we don't make money off them. The books themselves, I started off as a very poor individual, and I remember how hard it was to get into tech. And so buying my first class for CompTIA and getting a cert and ultimately failing the first one and then having to figure out how to find money to try again was hard. And so all the money from the books go into a fund that you can go to the MSP owners handbook.com and you can buy the books, you can download the worksheets. But if you go to the give back page, if you have employees, staff, or others that need upskilling, which we know is a challenge, they can apply. And we actually give grants for certifications through CompTIA. We try to get to all of the people that do apply. So if you have people that are interested, all the money from the books go back, and you can get the books on Amazon. All that money goes right back into the channel to help those that want to learn. That's
So, yeah, one wonderful initiative, and I would add to all the folks viewing this as well. The second edition, the SASE edition, it does a remarkable job, I think, of breaking down sort of what was versus how things are versus what's coming in a way that, quite frankly, you could regurgitate word for word for a lot of your clients. I think, Juan, Marnie, Wes, and Matt all did a really good job of kind of simplifying that story. So definitely worthwhile taking a read. That brings me on to the next question that I had, which was, if you were to start an MSP all over it again, ironically 10 years later, so 2014 was whenever you had your second one. If you were to do that again 10 years later now in 2024, what would you change or do differently based on the current climate that we're seeing within the channel and IT in general?
I don't know that I would do it very much different than I did the last one. I think sitting down and creating that business plan and understanding my go-to-market strategy, it's a similar thing that I'm doing with SuperOps, is really understanding like that strategy on how we go to market and bring value to the world and to the community. I wouldn't really change too much. So, number one, sit down, understand, build a business plan, understand, your P&L, what it costs to run a business, like what you're going to actually want to spend, the products and services that you want to offer, create that strategic plan of growth metrics of how much you need to sell and how you need to get there in each month, and then understand what a fully burdened rate of an employee and overhead and all those other things are. For many of you here, you kind of already know some of that, but that's something that I did every year too while I was scaling, was like, is this actually going to get to my goal? So yeah, I came up with the first draft of what I wanted to do. And again, I said I hit it in year 3. I kept trying to challenge myself to do more and do better. So every year I would tighten it up and like, I wonder if we could just do a little bit more. And I wonder if I could grow this just a little bit faster. And again, with all the gray hairs on my head, I can tell you it is possible. But let me tell you, you got to push hard. 16 locations, and I hand built those. Like me and my right-hand man, Carlos, we actually went into every city and did exactly what I'm telling you by hand. So like, it's not that I'm saying this like, hey, go tell somebody else how to do it. I literally built it. So I would say, just from that proof of concept perspective, is make sure that what you say and what you think is going to happen, try it out, make sure it works. Once you get it tight, turn up the heat, right? And keep moving. And I just say that just create your plan, just come up with how you're going to do things. Again, I'll give the customer journey out. This is actually every step in managed services on how to actually do it at every level, on all the measurables and things to implement. A lot of MSPs have come to love this. Vendors have implemented this into how they approach MSPs. So like, this has been a labor of love. Each one of those is classes that I teach, but those things, it took me those points to actually learn how to deploy each one of those. So I went in and was a student of every section of that business to understand how to deploy it. And I made myself sufficient. So if you don't know some of those things, take the time to go and learn them. I call this 2023 was the year of learning. Not just for the MSPs, but also for customers, right? We have a job as an educator, and as a leader, we also have a job, and that's to be able to articulate how we're actually going to grow our business and actually be able to explain the way we're going to do it. And if you don't know how you're going to do it, then you can go and learn. It's easy, just like we learn how to do tech.
For sure. And so that kind of brings us on nicely to the last point, one, which is I wanted to give you the opportunity to go into a little bit more detail around if people are curious to learn more, have questions for you. I know you've spoken about some of the classes that you run and some of the events you do. Yeah, please tell us a little bit more about that and how if folks want to reach out to you or get in touch. What's the best way to do that, and where can they see you in the future?
Absolutely. For all those that are interested and want to hear a little bit more, I got a lot more to deliver in value, and I'm very passionate about helping others. So if you guys, any of you need any help today, do me a favor, hit me up on LinkedIn. By all means, you guys can connect with me there, shoot me a message. I'm happy to share my email, juan.fernandez@superops.com. You guys can ping me there too. Again, I'm not going to sell you anything unless you're looking to buy an ARM MPSA, but if you want to learn more, and again, I'm not a hard sales guy. I'm more along the lines of an educator in terms of helping people try to build their businesses. And if you want to do business with SuperOps, by all means, that's wonderful. But what I'd rather you do is learn the things that you need to do in your business. And that actually then in turn will lead you into the right tools and the right things that you need to be implementing in your business. But as far as learning goes, we got a couple of them coming up. There's a series. If you go to SuperOps.com, and click on the Super Summits, I have a whole slew of educational events that are free to you. So if you're looking to go to a city near you and you want to learn and you're interested in learning, by all means, jump over there and click register. It is a no sales event, so you will not get pitched by any means, and I can assure you of that. But you will learn how to build your business. You can sit down with educators with strategic tactical advice and worksheets that you'll actually go home with a lot of knowledge about how to build. And another one is that's very close to dear to my heart is the MSP Community Minds event through MSP Initiative, also in separate cities. The next one's coming up is Nashville. By all means, if you guys are interested in that, we'll be doing a live stream talking about that. There are active registrations that are out there for Nashville right now that are coming up in April. So for those that are looking to learn and I can be of value, by all means, I'm willing to teach and just hopefully help the community raise all tides, as my good friend Matt Lee says. So if I can be of any value to you guys, I'm happy to be.
That's great. Thanks so much, Juan. We'll jump into Q&A. We've got a question here from Cameron who's asking, can you give an example of an impactful process you implemented that would work for a lot of MSPs?
Yeah, I'll give you this, right? So like this customer journey I want to give you is a series of 6 processes that are lined out in terms of how you do it. I will tell you this, as I've worked with a number of MSPs and have sat down with a lot of them. One of the biggest things, and I'll tell you this right now, is most MSPs think that there's a magic wand to be waved. I will say this, there's not. Ironically, you have a process. And one of the things that in your business is really going through and understanding the way I do it, and is go back and look at how you actually onboard a customer from the first time you touch them. And I mean, from the very first time, like when you met them at Dairy Queen and over a smoothie, right? Like whatever that is, or you met them in a bar, like where did that start? And track that all the way through and look at what it is that you do. Like I talk to them and then I actually go and, I sent them some information, or I went to, whatever you did next. Or I went to their building, I had a conversation with them, then we went in and did an assessment, and then we onboarded them. And here's what happened. When you go through that process and you understand what it is you do, you can actually start diving into that process and saying, did we do it good? Because I can tell you a lot of the challenges that a lot of MSPs, and I say this all the time, a lot of things, and the process that we fail the most at is onboarding. Because you win and lose at onboarding. So if you don't have a very clear, articulated, perfected onboarding process, you will create so much pain in your business. Like I can show you the vibration chart of a poor onboarding that'll literally take your business to the ground. Like it's an impacting. It's just like an earthquake. It's tiny at the beginning, and then the shake that it creates within your ecosystem will rattle you to death. And that'll annoy you to no end. So you have to fix that. Right back to RCA, right? Root cause analysis. Where did I fail? That process is where you have to look at and say, okay, what's generating all this damn noise? And usually it's bad onboarding. So one of the processes that I spend most of my time talking to MSPs with is, your onboarding process. So if there's a magic wand to be waved, look at that first, because I can assure you that 90% of the tickets that you're getting is because you're reacting to information that was needed at the beginning. You're like having to go do all this investigative work because we didn't spend X amount of time. And I can tell you this just from pure experience. We tested the 7-day onboarding. You know what the real number was?
What?
47 days.
47 days for onboarding?
47 days is what it took to actually onboard a customer. And that is a real number, right? That's how long it actually took to do all the things that we needed to do to make that customer as quiet as I possibly could have them after. That's the amount of time it takes to document everything, to notify it, to note all the applications, to understand the way the end users work with it, to understand their processes, to understand all the stakeholders. It was 47 days.
That's interesting. So just like to almost like set yourself up for that number that, like, listen, if you land a new client, do not expect that it's going to be one and done in 7 days. Like, it's going to be 47 and build your process around that a little bit. Like, so do the work well, so you only have to do it once.
This is the best part, right? Like, we come in and be like, all right, hey, here's our process. We're going to onboard you. You're in our QBR process right now. We're going to talk about your business. 50 days from now, we're actually going to be doing your onboarding. So on the 50th day, actually technically the 60th day, because we usually have a 7-day weaning period. At that point on the 60th day, we'll launch your first project. And why? Because we have full documentation of your infrastructure and we can guarantee a 30-day deployment timeline. If I do it outside of that band, then I actually am not going to be successful with you. So if you try to move a project out in front of onboarding, it'll be a catastrophe and you'll be pissed off and you'll be looking for another IT company in 45 days. So I was very articulate in the way I did it because I could actually show them the process for success by making sure I kept them to my timelines so that I could deliver a high level of success, which then in turn, I dictated how much money I charged them. Because it was like, you want success? This is the cost of doing good business. If you don't want success, go pick a cheaper choice. By all means, you'll be back later. And that's okay, right? I don't want a customer that doesn't want to be doing good work. So these are things. And again, Cameron, appreciate you for asking that question. Hopefully that helps. So it sounds like it could have been a more timely answer. Yeah. All right. Sounds like he's going to be on a, yep. This says, George, talking about onboarding with you, man. He's got you on the level.
I know it applies to vendors as well, right? So for sure, I know that's some great insight one about like kind of making sure that onboarding is efficient, but that you're not selling yourself short, because if you do that well, you're going to save yourself time and cause less headaches in the future, but set those expectations for your clients as well. And I think for me that if I were to summarize this conversation, I think it comes down to MSPs being iterative and detailed in setting up their process from the start, and not being afraid to go back and change things, but also focus on success and what that means for you and what that means for your customers, being able to articulate that in a big way, so then you begin to kind of pick it apart and find out, well, what are the ingredients for that, and how do you maximize those ingredients. So Juan, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it, and really appreciate all the kind of educational stuff you put out into the channel. We for all the registrants, we will definitely be sharing Juan's guide there that he shared with us, and the links to the MSP owners handbooks as well, and look out for the 3rd edition focused on sales. And as Juan mentioned, reach out to him on LinkedIn if you want to get any more information. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Juan. Bye.